Today's guest is Ross McNairn, the co-founder of Wordsmith AI, an AI platform headquartered in Edinburgh for in-house counsel. They started in 2023 and in 2025 they had 10x'd their revenue.
The first year of the company was building a whole product. We rebuilt the entire thing about 3 or 4 times to find the right thing.
This episode, I talked to Ross about how he spent an entire year building the wrong product, how 80% of their growth came from word of mouth, and why he thinks in-house lawyers are about to become air traffic controllers.
I was doing 20, 30 calls a day. If my calendar is just multiple qualifications, was I had to put toilet break into our growth last year was life now. We effectively, 12x headcount in the space in about 8-9 months.
So, what does the co-founder of Wordsmith do day to day?
I do all sorts of things. I look after the problems that sort of bubble up at the end and maybe fall off the table. So I look after fundraising. I look after product strategy. I do quite a lot of work with our enterprise clients. I look after and manage our leadership team. I think I heard a really good description of the job on the CEO a while back, and it kind of holds true, I think, Heath. But make sure there's money in the bank. Yes. And make sure that people know where they're going. But make sure everybody's being popped and motivated. So I don't know if I do all of those things perfectly, but I try.
So you've been previously the Chief Technology Officer at Travelperk.
Yeah.
Now, that's a pretty senior and comfortable position to be in. What did you see at Travelperk that made you thought, hang on a minute, I need to start a legal AI startup?
What chose? I always wanted to do something in legal, but honestly, working in legal pre-AI felt like it just felt painful. I actually built a lot of products before. So my background is I started as a lawyer, and then I trained as a software engineer, and then climbed up through the ranks of that over about 10, 12 years. But I still, where I originally began was hacking together a file management system that sat on top of a map. So you can do it in conveyancing, you can see how all the different plots interact together. I actually did that for a major project up on the Orkney Islands and Shetland when we were trying to put wind turbines up there. So I began hacking around in the legal space. I absolutely loved it, but it wasn't the right time to do it. So I'd been at Travelperk through a pretty cool period of growth. We'd gone from 20 to 1,600 employees. I was running 400 or 500 of people in New York, and I think it was partly that I wanted to work in the space, and also I think that this phase in company building is just awesome. It's exhausting, but I draw a lot of energy from it, and there's a certain type of people that you work with and a certain type of pace. I got pretty inspired by, actually, to be fair to them, the bulk of what the Travelperk legal team did was in the early AI days, they were kind of hacking around without good tools. And I like to look at that. Well, I'm outside of it, but a few things going up forward.
So you say that AI definitely spurred and ignited your decision to start up?
Yeah, so we got introduced to AI through an investor at Travelperk, and I went over for some behind the scenes CTO pre-release thing to see how we could use it in Travelperk.
Yeah.
And I pretty much did that, but until the CEO about a month later, I'm like, I'm off the bill, and I'm off to build applications. Look at AI. This is just too good. And then I stayed around for maybe 8 months doing Android. So senior wasn't need to, but I saw it, and instantly it was like, this is where we need to grow now.
And you're building out Wordsmith from here at Edinburgh, and you're not building it out from San Francisco or necessarily London. What is it that you decided, I need to be Edinburgh now?
Well, to be clear, we have employees in London, employees in New York.
Yeah.
We do a ton from there. Like our chief revenue officer's in New York. Our CTO is in London. I wouldn't say that we are sitting in this one region. We're very much an international company, and we're very much a distributed executive team with key people across the world. We just use each geography to whatever its advantage is. So I learned with Skyscanner, which was, they bought my first company. They built, at the time, the fourth biggest tech company in the UK. we built that, leveraging some of the advantages of maybe getting access to better engineers for cheaper. Travel Perk, we built a $2.5 billion company in Barcelona. Yeah, so in each of those cases, actually we wrote a blog on this after I left Travel Perk, but in each case, those unicorns used some advantage of their environment to get an edge on other companies. So Travel Perk, we used the fact that there were tons of young expats. And you have all this transient population of people flying through. So we built this amazing, really energetic, pumped up sales team. And we had a lot of really good sales talent come through there. Skyscanner, they used the universities and the deep technical talent in Edinburgh in particular to build a very technical product. So the Edinburgh University is the number one informatics AI leading in Europe. Geoffrey Hinton, the grandfather of AI, trained in Edinburgh. So the pedigree is super high, and we got a lot of really good talent from there. We got access to a lot of very good engineering talent, I'll be honest, advantage. So I wouldn't say that we are particularly wedded to one jurisdiction. We're wedded to advantages that lead us an edge, and we just happen to find some other treasure there.
I think a lot of people think, if you want to get funding for your startup, you'd have to be in America. But it's proving that isn't true, especially building from Edinburgh.
Yeah, I think ultimately, what helped is I built a few things before as well. So I say, hey, I'm going to leverage some of these advantages. They say, actually, that does make sense, right? Whereas if you just are starting in a city like Edinburgh and you've never seen anything else and you don't know what hypersphere looks like, it's unlikely that you're going to guess it just sitting on all that. But if you have access to that network already, if you've already built those things and you immediately go global and you go and hire your CRO, we were on Edinburgh from day one. So I knew that we needed second types of talent. So I think, you can play these you can play different games when you've got a bit of experience.
Now, I wanted to focus a bit on your clients. Have they mostly been so far from like inbound, or have they been an outbound?
So the first maybe dozen, something like this, were outbound. We didn't have a product.
Yeah.
We actually got the wrong product. The first year of the company was building a wrong product. We were rotating through. We rebuilt the entire thing about 3 or 4 times to find the right thing. We started with a kind of ALSP model and then loved it, and then we went into some private chili, trying to do an agentic system before the tech was really there. So we needed too much guidance and things like this. And then we settled on something much closer to building on now, which is this enablement layer for international layers where it connects with the rest of the business and just the profile that goes with it. But I think, in general, it was the path, yeah.
I think a lot of the in-house legal teams are itching for AI tools. It's not surprising that they've been both inbound and they also kind of, announce the products for people to be visible. And
what it evolved very quickly, right? It was once those initials with 12 companies were very happy or so. The last year has just been a tsunami of inbound. So if you mind 18% in our growth last year was away from Alpha and inbound. People were flowing it through the front door. So initially, what happened is I got completely overwhelmed once we found real fit. So there's a small team, and suddenly it went from me outbounding to quite opposite. I remember sitting there just watching our Slack chat, and there's actually a post somewhere in my LinkedIn history where I go out and ask for help, and you can see my calendar is just loads of war qualifications. Was I had to put a toilet break in, and then it was usually we had something like I was doing 20, 30 calls a day of traffic, which you can't service that with a tiny team. So we kind of had to pump the brakes, go to hire a team, and it was only then that we could deal with the capacity, and then we effectively 12x headcount in the space of about 8-9 months to keep all of them, which was wild.
And then from like a competitor lens, we've got like the likes of Harvey, or the likes of Labora, Spellbook, Equal 5 building out in Europe as well. What's something perhaps you admire about their approaches, and how does Wordsmith ultimately differ from them?
I think what's been super interesting about it at the beginning is there was so little trust. People don't really know much about it. That actually, what And also the nuance of the lawyers specifically is lawyers are not that used to running technology. What they are used to buying is legal services.
Yes.
And when you evaluate and you compare buy legal services, they don't go and test 12 different law firms. They tend to shop on brand, right? So they'll say, okay, and the lawyers price that brand as well. And you can actually find precisely the same lawyer shifting from firm X to firm Y will have a different billing point because there's an aura that comes with it. And so what I found, I think what some players have done really well is quickly generate demand and a perception of scarcity to create brand. Like I think the way that certain mechanics early on have happened, I think a casebook already. I think that the challenge now is when you have a market that doesn't have many people in it, you can just run everywhere, give something generic to the world. But now if you look at somebody who is an in-house practitioner in a team of 10 sitting here servicing 3,000 people, or you look at an M&A lawyer sitting in Latham, the type of work that these people tend to do is extremely different ends of the spectrum. And in this case, you have to worry about 20 or 30 clients that you're looking after. In this case, you have one client with 1,000 stakeholders. So even the architecture of the product that these people require is very different. Here, you need to have different folders with different client information in.
Yes.
You need to be able to silo between, and you need to synchronize with matches, and you need to work on, hopefully, quite nuanced, novel, advanced legal work. Because if it is operationally simple, you probably shouldn't be having 3 rented out for it.
Yes.
Whereas in this case, you are a lawyer, but you are actually, with speaking me, in-house lawyers, a lot of what they have to do is deal with operations. I mean, we have to deal with all the different systems in the company. They have to deal with setting up repeated things that people need from them. So it could be the HR team, the consummation and equity. And they need to have a way of doing that in production as well. Or you may have the commercial contracting team have third-party agreements. So it's much more about standardizing, packaging, connecting the stuff together, and then distributing it across the company and making a factory. Whereas this is much more about, hopefully, creating something that you can't buy off the shelf in a repeated way. So fundamentally, I think those two bits of the spectrum are quite different. And I think as the market evolves, people are beginning to realize that. For one generic thing that is going to revolutionize $2 trillion TAM is unlikely to be the case. And that probably the way that we were before AI, where you had different solutions for different problems in the market, is probably where we're going to end up. Post-AI, once things settle down, you'll find that people will want things that are actually really this or that.
So why did you went after the in-house market over private practice? Was it simply because you had experience in that sector?
Yeah, well, I've been a consumer of the services, but I honestly believe, the building enough SaaS products now to know that at some point, having the tight group of customers that you are really good for is all it is. And if you try and be all things to all people, you end up getting problems with your product. Because as the market becomes more competitive and as people request more and more features, one of two things will happen. One is you'll end up with a horrible product that's trying to do everything for everyone. Yeah. Where there's just buttons and configuration and it's just a nightmare trying to do. Or you'll just end up not putting that stuff in, you think people that need it, and then you won't meet their requirements. So there's a really delicate balance between getting the right grouping of people that you need. So we thought that there was a good competitive set of products for the novel, high-end legal work. We thought that those players were going to continue to invest in the type of work that they want to build for the high end. And we felt that there was just a huge gap that we understood very clearly well, and that they needed something very specific for them. So we decided to just make a bet on where we felt the market was going to segment in 2-3 years' time.
And you mentioned earlier about scaling people and getting more people to help scale the business.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part about hiring a person? Or what is it when you're going to look to hire someone what is the one characteristic that is like a non-negotiable for us?
Great. So I would take somebody that has worse academics, has a worse CV, has everything. If you can see that they have an element of resilience to. Because, doing this kind of companies can, for many people, they think it being like glamorous. Decide that, it's flashy, I see all the press releases. But the reality of it is that you are sitting in an environment where you have very little infrastructure. You have to build that infrastructure yourself. You have to get up, and you have to have a high agency. And you need to just be a punch bag that can get up every single day and hit it again and again and again and again. And I think I've seen so many people in these stages of these business romanticize it. And then the cold reality of being in the office at 3 a.m. when you're slogging through it, and it's just not for everybody. Which oddly, I tell you, an incredible hiring pool for us was. Because weirdly enough, being a lawyer in many situations, you're a punch bag, be that by Krantz or be that by the rest of the company. So they make phenomenal startup employees.
Yes, again. That's really interesting. And zooming out a bit and looking at the legal tech funding scene, and you've got Harvey, Begora, and a lot of startups, to be honest, raising millions and millions and millions of pounds and dollars. When it comes to those fundraising conversations for Wordsmith, are the VCs comparing you to them, or can they see something different? And do they see the in-house market as being funding maybe different?
Yeah, excellent. I think, look at Harvey's business path as well. Just back to McNairn Central. Sandstone.
Yeah.
So, there's your answer. But yeah, they do. In many cases, I think you get two types of VCs, and generally the ones that, like, one of the reasons that we like partnering with Index so much is that they have a very strong view on how they think the world will be in 2-3 years' time. And that view is based on how we're seeing this play out. They're the most successful investor in Europe. If you just look at their track record this last year, they was an Index partner at the top of the latest list. They are superb. And I think now working with them for a while, you can see why. They have very high conviction. They have a clear view on this, and they're not short-term on these things. What do we say about funding? I mean, it's a funny thing, but if you look at you give it another thing, but the AI world is kind of distorting things. That you can do transformative things with budgets that they are not as big. So most of the money that gets raised actually ends up going on trying to differentiate this brand, or sponsorships, or paying for it, which actually isn't value to your customers. Whereas if you look at, like, a really good analogy would be on the foundation model stuff, is OpenAI have raised all this money in Anthropic, and all of a sudden a Series A company, Mass, the guys that messages board, frankly, build a better product than books in a relatively short period of time. And the reason why is that AI is creating such incredible leverage for software engineers that sometimes when you've built loads of stuff, if you've come out early and you've built all these separate products and you've got 5 massive things you've constructed and you're trying to maintain them, you're actually at quite a big disadvantage to even somebody a few years younger who started with new toolkits, no debt. And so it's difficult for people in some of those early plays to keep a huge lead on the part. Like, how could Begora have built a competitive product with Harvey starting much younger and with Fire's Capital? So I would say one of the mistakes in the tech is to just simply look at funding doors and believe that because you've raised money and you're just carrying the bit of balance, suddenly that's going to translate. It doesn't. It doesn't directly translate into all that. And beyond that, they also didn't even pre. Like, we got Skyscanner with 4 million, a primary funding.
That's not much compared to the millions.
One startup has out there raised $800, which is roughly what some of his fares and deliveries. That did not translate into a better product for us at all. It was absolutely disastrous, because what it led to was incredibly loose fiscal discipline, way in which we spent. Skyscanner was a superb company because it was obsessed with the customer. we focus everything on building for them, and we don't take shortcuts. And I think many people around me know that in the flight race, they're very competitive. They're built in that way. So I think it's like anything. Like there's nuance to it, and there isn't just a similar formula. Otherwise, what we were waiting for today.
Now, looking at the news, last week, OpenAI released ChatGPT with healthcare.
Yeah.
This is their first leap into a highly regulated industry. We've also seen this week Anthropic have released Claude Cowork, the non-codey version for those in the professional knowledge sectors. Can you see OpenAI and Anthropic going straight to legal? And does that worry you? If so?
So I think, the way I see the foundation, one of the things about selling in-house versus selling in law firms is that from day one, every one of the clients that they were selling to had already adopted some or multiple horizontal AI tools. And that, whereas in the law firm world, often it was the first time that they're interacting with it. So for us in this team, creating a product with differentiated value to foundation models is part of the DNA of the company from day zero. What we've actually found is that usually teams that have the experience with it are much faster adopters. They're easier for us to sell to it because they understand the basics of it and they become a more sophisticated purchaser.
Yeah.
So I think for us, everybody getting skill in AI is generated because then I am not at all worried about the fact that this is not an easy thing to build. The amount of effort and time that we have spent to preserve perfect template formatting when it comes into these documents, or to get the precision of third-party paper review that we can do, where you can suck a website in, take the page down, convert it into a Word doc, analyze all the links, do multi-doc reviewed. I think there's a massive difference for lawyers. I think it's been proven that in the last 2 years, there's a huge difference between something that kind of does the job and something that is production ready. So I have no doubt at all that Anthropic and OpenAI will launch things that are kind of good, basic, simple versions of this stuff. I think that people that are serious about it, again, at a completely different level of demand for specialist tools, and I'm very ready to meet that.
And so if OpenAI and Anthropic are all based in the US, is the US expansion on the cards for you? And if so, why is it important that you go after that market?
Yeah, we'll be opening US and Canada quite soon. We're warm up now. We've got a team there. We're doing the foundational stuff. Yeah. I think that the US is exciting because, to my point of people that are early adopters working well for us, that is a market where I think the investment that we'd have made in building a genuinely deep technical product that's not a thin and it's just well branded, but a genuinely and deeply considered product, which has been our approach from day one. That I think really resonates with a market that understands and has a high demand from products. So each time I've tried to move, whether that be a travel perk or it's scanning with Mac or any of these companies, each time we've tried to localize and sell them to the US, there are just a few things about American consumers that are super different.
Yeah.
And number one is that they are incredibly literate in technology, just their adoption so early and so aggressive. So we find the US side quite a sophisticated market. Two, their buying cycles are really short. They have zero tolerance for poor support, and also they spend faster and quicker. So you tend to be able to sign big deals much faster, but they'll churn very quickly with the services in there. So I think you get found out facts in America if you're trying to hawk something that long term isn't competitive.
And I think it also makes sense that you're closer to your customer, right? Because a lot of in-house legal teams that are operating in the UK, they're headquartered perhaps in the US, and maybe the purchasing decision is made over there.
Yep.
So I think you can see that important value.
Yeah, like I'm in New York, and as I say, we've had presence pretty much from day zero. We've been a global team. So it's not the first time that we've built products for this market as well. And like how Fabi Gigs, He was a Meta in 10 years. He's over on the lead Instagram. I see he's Robbie, my other co-founder, is qualified in the Europa. So he's and he's also here in a totally kid. He seems to have all bits of paper. But so we're deeply and intimately familiar with the sort of transatlantic legal systems on both sides, London, New York. For us, it's not new for us that.
And then looking into the future, your vision for Wordsmith in, well, I would have said 5 years at 2030, but now it's 40 years. For 5 years, 10 years time, what are your goals? And more importantly, how do you think the in-house profession and role have changed with the upcoming of these new AI tools?
Yeah, I think I'm going to turn more into being an air traffic controller. So if you watch how software engineers now work, when I used to build squads of software engineers 4 years, I have 6 engineers, a designer, product manager, and like quite a bulky operation. They would be a decision-making unit that would work on the big product. Now our squads are 2 engineers with half a designer and a third of a product manager. So the product manager splits across. We have just as many engineers. We have just as many designers, but we divide people up because they can get so much more done. They have a huge amount more tooling. They then get a bit more autonomy and they run these more, we basically just run more projects and more streams of work than we could before. When you watch how those engineers work, about 20-30% of our code is AI written. So if I find a simple bug, I write it, I'm talking to the AI, it will automatically create a ticket. It will get picked up by Cursor. Cursor will complete the ticket and then make a request for it to go into the code base. And an engineer just says, okay. And then the novel stuff is done by our agent. I think pretty much that model where you're spinning up lots of small agents that are completing tasks that are integrated with the system. That is how in-house legal is going to reflect. And it needs to connect to the systems. They need to be able to do those dedicated workflows. They're going to get a hell of a lot more done. They're going to be able to set lots of these little work streams up around them, and they're going to be the air traffic controller that just sits there. And you'll have just a huge amount more work that they're capable of doing across the business.
Yeah, super interesting. Going to more of a moderator than the doer itself.
Yeah, I think like one of the finest misconceptions that a lot of people have about what AI will do in the future is that somehow there is a finite amount of work that is going to go away. Now, why we have the same number of software engineers? Because the roadmap is always there. There's always more stuff to build. So if I have extra engineering capacity, I'm going to fire a software team and just build 3 times more. I've yet to come across an in-house team that is doing absolutely everything or close to what the business would like from them. So I kind of think that both of these domains are a bit like mobile internet. But the cheaper you make it and the faster you make it, the more you're going to use it. And that if legal is on demand, accurate, in the right places, the CEO would use it all the time. The sales team will be checking compliance on what they're sending out. The marketing team, whenever they create a creative in a regulated industry, instantly have all of their creative checked to make sure they're compliant with the regulations. There's a lot of legal that could be done that isn't being done because of the constraints of the tools that we have right now.
It's a bit like Clevin's paradox. If Hitler says something, when airplanes came around, people are more flying more than ever, right?
Yeah, otherwise, that's actually what will make your business way more competitive. Is if you're set up to be a team that can hammer out 100 times more, you can just do it all. You're a much more aggressive organization.
We've got 2 minutes left. It's a very final question. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be listening to this who are truly inspired by your journey from lawyer to in-house to CTO to now founding your own business. I think it's fair to say that the legal profession attracts a vast amount of truly talented people. Yeah, for sure. Yet lawyers, I think, can be partly because they're so intelligent, they're very risk averse. What tips and advice would you have to someone that maybe is a lawyer or someone working in-house who has a massive great idea for a legal tech startup?
I would give them the same advice that I give to anybody who wants to build a tech company. First, understand how they all work. It is a job, like being a lawyer. Go and find a company early on and get some exposure to what good looks like. Learn on somebody else's paycheck initially.
Yeah.
And go in, don't.
Does it to get experience from the startup?
I would go into that world and have capacity. You just go and blow some stuff up and get someone else to help you fix it.
But it's Fred and McGuizzman.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, basically, I started my own thing initially, and honestly, I learned a lot in that first stint. But the stint in Skyscanner after that, a few years of watching what world-class operators do, completely changed me as a participant. You are more likely to get capital because people will understand that you know what you're doing. How are you going to build connections for software engineers? You got to get familiar with the tools and things like this. And you don't even need long. You need long enough that you can just learn the blueprints of how this funny world works. And then your risk speed will drop considerably.
Ross, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, really good. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Great, guys.